Welcome to the Metaphysics Hour. I am your host, Rory Colgan. Tonight, whenever you're tuning in, I want to share with you the exciting and alarming news of alternative currencies. In other words, currencies that are not necessarily fractional, aren't necessarily fiat, and aren't necessarily designed to be overseen by the regulators. So there's over 1,100 currencies, and I've only looked at maybe 200 to 300 of them on a superficial level. Right now, as a disclosure, I'm invested in 7 of these currencies with a small portion of money. I'll list them off just so you know that here's my bias right now, and there's probably about 7 to 10 more currencies I'd like to invest in. And I'll share with you which ones I've invested in a few moments, because that's not necessarily as important as first describing what a cryptocurrency is. Again, since there are 1,100 of them, it's like 1,100 people. Sure, they're people, but there's a lot of distinctions and differences between each one of those people and also each one of these coins. What I'm excited about and what the metaphysician in me is celebrating is the decentralized nature of the currencies, the encrypted nature of the currencies, and even though it is fiat in the sense that it is by decree, it is also backed by technology that demands actual energy before a coin can be made. Here it is, 9/25/2017. John McAfee, founder of McAfee Antivirus, says that his company and other companies would agree with this sentiment. It takes about $1,000 worth of hardware equipment and software equipment and electricity power to mine a single Bitcoin. Well, as of right now, last time I checked 2 hours ago, Bitcoin was just under $4,000. So it still cost $1,000 to create that coin. There's a limited number of those coins. And so what that means is that they're not true fiat. Fiat is simply I say there's going to be quantitative easing 1, says Ben Bernanke. Quantitative easing number 2, says Ben Bernanke. Quantitative easing number 3, says Ben Bernanke, flooding the system with trillions of dollars. Trillions of dollars floods the market and therefore destabilizes the dollar. Now, we've probably gotten into wars and conflicts and assassinations and blackmail and all sorts of negative manipulation just to keep the dollar relatively stable to all the other central bank fiat currencies. But these decentralized currencies don't operate with that parameter. You can't go in and blow up a country because it decides to get off the US petrodollar, aka Iraq 2003 Saddam Hussein. You can't do that. You would have to go out and arrest and confiscate every computer that's working on these currencies, and there's thousands upon thousands spread across the globe in different jurisdictions. So the powers that shouldn't be, as James Corbett would like to point it, they're going to be hard pressed to manipulate and to squash this free movement. And this free movement basically says that the value is what we make it to be. In a free market, you just trade something back and forth based upon your idea of its value. And so these coins have real value because people think they have real value. It's the same concept with gold. Gold has real value because people think it has real value. There might be some naysayers saying, no, it has intrinsic value. Well, if it has intrinsic value, why aren't there animals eating it and wearing it and using it to procreate? You don't see mountain lions or lions with big, thick chains of gold around their neck. So the inherent value is a human construct. So in this way, Bitcoin, just as an example, 21 million coins in total will be mined. It's getting harder to mine. Again, $1,000 to mine a single coin. Hence, the value is about $4,000. Now, this coin, since there's never going to be any more of them, unless they do a fork, and that's another subject altogether, but it's a different coin. It's a different thing altogether. That coin is going to be scarce. And as long as it's scarce and there are people out there that want it to store wealth, to have exchange of services and goods without using the manipulated fiat currency. And let's just talk about that for a second. So sure, there are people that are going to want to get outside of the regulators and the bureaucracies and the laws because they're breaking the laws. But that's a small portion of the people that are using this. In other words, people don't want to deal with regulators and laws because they're hassles, they're complicated, and they're unnecessary. In other words, I have a belief that what the Federal Reserve Bank is doing is wrong. So why should I do business with them? I shouldn't use their currency in the ways that I can choose to use a different currency. So I want to use these alternative currencies because they're built on better models than this antiquated debt slavery model. This is the equivalent of using the Federal Reserve notes as supporting the slave masters, or using these free or alternative currencies that are based on different principles that actually do create equality. And if you do that, then you're saying to the slave masters, I do not support slavery. Economic slavery is something that 99% of the people, probably 90% of the people, really deal with. And these alternative currencies can be a way to free the 90%. Interesting note, the difficult component of this is that it can also be used to enslave the 90%. As everything becomes digital and you have to store your money at the Federal Reserve Bank, and that's the only bank that exists. Scott Galloway with Winners and Losers in his YouTube channel interviewed a professor that talked about how the banks would disappear and there would just be one central bank and we would all use that. That's a horrible idea in the sense that you're giving this monster more power. You're giving the slave master more energy. So these alternative currencies can be used to create freedom. Now, there's going to be some Christians out there. I've heard them, I've seen them, I've talked to them, at least electronically. They talk about these cryptocurrencies as being black projects for the CIA and trying to manipulate everybody to get into the digital currency so they can go to cashless. And yes, I think that's what they're trying to hijack the ship for. They're trying to take this freedom technology and take it into slavery technology. What's changed there? People that are evil and idiots do this all the time. So it's not the mark of the beast if we understand each one of these coins. There's a few coins out there that probably are part of the mark of the beast system, but there's a few coins that I know from my experience are not part of the mark of the beast. They're actually part of the mark of the Christ, if you will, the anointed. They're correct in their philosophies. So I can tell you the coins that I've invested in. And it all started for me with Coinbase.com. I started there, putting I linked a bank account, bought some Bitcoin, Litecoin, and Ethereum, and then transferred Bitcoin to different wallets and then exchanged them with different currencies. So I've spread out my my investment to different currencies, and ideally I would like to start transacting in those currencies and just support this movement. So again, just as a disclaimer, the currencies I'm involved in are Digital Note, Bytecoin, Steam, Ethereum, Litecoin, Bitcoin, and the last one was Vertcoin. So those 7 currencies are altcoins, are the ones that I'm involved with in now, and I want to get involved with many more because they are very good for, I think, human nature in general, because they're going to lead towards freedom. And I think that's a big, important thing. So support these altcoins, not like is a Patreon or a Kickstarter, but as a user, go out, buy some coins and start using them. Store some of your value. This is not financial advice from an approved financial advisor, but personally, I'm going to try to put at least 10% of my savings into these coins. And then again, because I teach and do things one-on-one, peer-to-peer, I'd like to introduce this as a medium of exchange that people can use for my services. So that's my thoughts on the cryptocurrency and why it's a good thing. Sure, there's a couple bad things associated with it, but that's human nature. Any tool that has human value can be taken by a sociopath or a psychopath or a psychopathic institution and turned against those that created it for the good of the people. Comment and like and share this if you think it is worth your time. See you guys later.